Mike Perry. There is no safer bet in MMA than Mike Perry doing something absolutely irredeemably unhinged. Inside the cage, outside it, on Twitter, in gas stations, mid-walkout, doesn't matter. Platinum is chaos incarnate. A man so erratic, he once asked the UFC to walk out to the Halo theme song and instead got Beyonce's Halo, and then sang every word on his way to the cage. The Florida native's entire UFC run was an experiment in what happens when you hand an emotional live wire a contract and a camera. At UFC 202, Perry faked a handshake with opponent Lim Hyun-gyu, then screamed, "Thought you had a friend, boy," directly into his face. That was his debut. From there, the descent into meme immortality was fast and loud. He cornered himself with just his girlfriend holding a bucket and an ice pack. He fought in short shorts that looked like off-brand MMA cosplay. He publicly asked John and Nick why taxes even exist. He headbutted media day cameras. He regularly dances to his opponent's walkout music. And when he wasn't in the cage, he was brawling in restaurants, arguing with Darren Till on Instagram, or prepping Jake Paul for a boxing match like some deranged Fight Club crossover. It would all be parody, except Perry could really fight. Knockout power, granite chin, and a savage streak that won him 9 UFC bouts, and a cult following who didn't come for technique, they came for the unpredictable theater of watching a man punch himself in the face before the other guy could do it first. He was less a fighter than a glitch in the system. A bruiser with no filter, no blueprint, no consistent corner, and somehow that was the brand. Mike Perry didn't just embrace the chaos, he was the chaos. Even now, in bare-knuckle brawls or post-fight interviews where he forgets he's live, Perry remains the UFC's favorite kind of weird. Unscripted, unfiltered, and completely feral. Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson is the type of guy to become an internet proverb, a former interim lightweight champion, TF winner, and certified berserker inside the cage. But his weirdness, that's legacy tier. That's folklore. That's he trained blindfolded on a balance beam while dodging medicine balls because why not level of weird. From the start, Ferguson carried the aura of a man not playing by the rules, not because he was rebellious, but because he didn't seem to realize there were rules. His training videos looked like deleted scenes from a Rocky parody. Baseball throws into tires, Wing Chun blocks on metal poles, flurries into the air, and ice baths in his backyard with a 1,000-yard stare. He kicked steel pipes to condition his shins. He was once spotted elbowing a speed bag in a suit jacket. No trainer, just vibes. And the interviews? Pure stream of consciousness theater. Ferguson doesn't speak, he downloads. One sentence is about his opponent being a McNugget. The next is about his son's future. Then it's suddenly a dissertation on quantum movement through chakra alignment. Ask him about a fight. He'll tell you which Ninja Turtle he relates to. Michelangelo, obviously. Yet for all the madness, there was method. Tony put together one of the greatest streaks in lightweight history. 12 straight wins, countless bloodbaths, and a savage style built on volume, elbows, scrambles, and pressure that felt like drowning in chaos. He wasn't unorthodox, he was anti-orthodox, but that weirdness, that edge that made him special, began to cut both ways. The decline came fast, 6 straight losses, a brutal KO from Michael Chandler, questions about his mental health. Still, Ferguson never broke character, or maybe that was the character all along. This is a man who once threatened to ankle pick Fabricio Werdum in the middle of a press conference, who reportedly healed his own knee without surgery, who made Dana White visibly recoil at a stare down, and who somehow, even on a losing streak, still feels like something might happen when he fights. Diego Sanchez. Before there was chaos theory in MMA, there was Diego Sanchez, the original Ultimate Fighter winner, the original spiritual whirlwind, the man who screamed yes down the tunnel like Daniel Bryan on ayahuasca. Diego didn't walk to the cage. He charged through dimensions, powered by raw emotion, high-altitude visualization, and possibly asparagus. On paper, Sanchez was a grinder, a pressure fighter with granite durability and a heart so big it often overruled logic, but around that foundation, pure surrealism. During his UFC run, which spans 4 weight classes, multiple nicknames, and a list of wars carved into MMA history, Diego became something more than a fighter. He became performance art. There were the invisible alien fights, the stevia breast cancer cures, the thunderstorm yoga. The time he walked out carrying a literal wooden cross like he was about to challenge Dracula in the co-main. At one point, he rebranded from The Nightmare to The Dream, then back again, before finally landing on Lionheart. Because sure, why not? And then came the dark turn. After years with the famed Jackson Wink camp, Diego left to be managed and cornered solely by Joshua Fabia, a self-styled guru whose methods ranged from laughable to alarming. At one point, Sanchez was filmed hanging upside down while Fabia berated him like an unhinged life coach from a rejected Tony Robbins spinoff. The UFC, not known for its sentimentality, saw enough and released him, yet through it all, through madness, brilliance, chaos, and cringe, Diego Sanchez never stopped being Diego Sanchez. When he fought, it wasn't clean, it wasn't calculated, it was spiritual warfare. Blood, grit, primal energy. You couldn't look away. You didn't want to. He was the last of the old gods, a wild card in every sense, a man whose weirdness transcended antics and bled into philosophy. Jason Mayhem Miller. Mayhem wasn't a nickname, it was prophecy. Jason Miller's time in the UFC was brief, just 3 fights, but his legend looms far larger than the box score. To describe him as weird undersells it. Mayhem was performance art dipped in gasoline and set loose on fight week, a one-man circus act with a black belt and a broadcasting mic. Before his second UFC stint, Miller had already built a cult following, starring in Bully Beatdown on MTV, sparring with Strikeforce's best, and generally acting like the human embodiment of a Red Bull can. His entrances were the stuff of internet gold, dancing, costumes, elaborate pranks. He once walked out to the cage in a robe and samurai headband, then did the worm in the octagon. Sober, and yet, despite the antics, the guy could fight. He went 3 rounds with Georges St. Pierre in his early UFC days. He was competitive in multiple promotions, but in the UFC, the chaos started outscaling the competition. After coaching TUF 14 opposite Michael Bisping, where his eccentricity won fans but his cardio didn't, he lost 2 straight fights and was abruptly cut from the promotion. The reason? A backstage incident so bizarre the UFC never fully explained it. Dana White just said, "Some crazy expletive happened backstage." That's the thing with Mayhem. The weird was constant, sometimes hilarious, sometimes concerning, like the time he live streamed a standoff with police, or when he got naked in a church and sprayed a fire extinguisher, or when he completely broke character in an MMA Hour interview while pretending to be Lucky Patrick. His alter ego from Here Comes the Boom. Substance abuse and mental health struggles would follow, dragging Mayhem into a spiral of arrests and instability. But beneath the wreckage is still a strangely beloved figure, a chaotic jester of the MMA world who for a moment made weird cool. Michel Pereira. If video game logic ever leaked into the real world, it did so through Michel Pereira's fists, feet, and front flips. The Brazilian welterweight didn't just enter the UFC octagon. He launched into it like someone mashed every button on the controller at once. Cartwheels, backflips, flying knees from 5 feet away. Cage wall Superman punches that would make Guile proud. For Pereira, standing still wasn't just dangerous, it was apparently spiritually unacceptable. His UFC debut in 2019 against Danny Roberts was an immediate viral sensation. Pereira danced his way to the cage like it was Rio Carnival, then knocked Roberts out with a perfectly timed flying knee, mid-air, mid-mayhem. That performance landed him a Performance of the Night bonus and a permanent spot on MMA's What Did I Just Watch highlight reels. But for every moment of brilliance, there's been a moment of absolute madness. In his second UFC fight, Pereira spent so much time flipping, spinning, and showboating against late replacement Tristan Connolly that he gassed out spectacularly and lost a decision to a man fighting up a weight class on short notice. One judge's scorecard may as well have said, Style 10, Substance 3. Then there was the Diego Sanchez fight, where Pereira was clearly winning until he landed an illegal knee. Sanchez, ever the weirdo savant, milked the DQ for a win while Pereira stood blinking in disbelief, probably calculating whether a somersault elbow would have been a better choice. Despite the chaos, he's matured. Slightly. Less flipping, more focused violence. Wins over Andre Fialho, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Nico Price have shown he can settle into an actual game plan, but the unpredictability still lingers. He could knock someone out with a capoeira kick tomorrow, and nobody would be surprised. Sage Northcutt. perfect. If a protein shake became sentient, put on an aw shucks smile, and front flipped into the UFC, it would be named Sage Northcutt. When Sage debuted at just 19 years old at UFC 192, he looked less like a cage fighter and more like a walking Abercrombie ad engineered in a lab to sell you whey powder. He was ripped, bleach blonde, ridiculously polite, and grinning like he'd just won prom king after knocking out Francisco Trevino in 57 seconds. And then came the post-fight interview. "Mr. Joe Rogan, sir?" he chirped after calling everyone within 300 yards ma'am or mister. Then he did a standing front flip inside the octagon, just because. The MMA world didn't know how to process him. He wasn't faking it, that was the terrifying part. Sage Northcutt wasn't playing the good guy, he was the good guy. No cursing, no tattoos, no drama. His biggest controversy? Saying he'd never had pepper on his chicken before. The man's spice level was youth pastor. He was wholesome to the point of suspicion. Fans waited for the mask to drop, the scandal to leak, but it never came. Sage kept smiling, he kept flipping, he kept being unnervingly perfect. Even Dana White didn't know what to make of it. After a 6-2 UFC run, Sage was released while on a win streak. Dana later hinted that Sage might just be too nice for the fight game, like the MMA version of an angel sent down to kick people politely and return home before sunset. After leaving the UFC, he joined one championship and got his face broken in 30 seconds. But even then, he didn't complain, just got it surgically rebuilt and came back smiling. Quentin Rampage Jackson. Rampage Jackson wasn't just a fighter, he was a walking glitch in the MMA matrix. Imagine prime Chuck Liddell power, WWE promo energy, and the emotional impulse control of a raccoon in a hot Cheetos factory. That was Rampage. This man suplexed people unconscious in pride, howled like a wolf after wins, and powerbombed Ricardo Arona so hard the arena briefly lost its soul. His literal signature move was slamming people into oblivion. He once said, "I don't wrestle, I slam." That wasn't trash talk, it was gospel. But Rampage was as weird outside the cage as he was violent inside it. He routinely humped reporters on camera, as in walked behind them during interviews and aggressively air humped them mid-sentence. He once tried to bite a microphone. He chased Ariel Helwani around an arena like a Tom and Jerry episode. He also, this is real, barked at Japanese journalists because he thought they didn't understand English unless he added dog sound effects. And then came the meltdown. In 2008, Rampage, the reigning UFC light heavyweight champion at the time, went on a high-speed police chase through Orange County in a giant monster truck with his own face on it, blew a tire, kept driving on the rim, drove on sidewalks, hit multiple cars, nearly flipped it, all while shouting conspiracy theories at pedestrians. Dana White later personally bailed him out of custody. Somehow he still fought for the UFC again, multiple times. Rampage was chaos, but he was chaos with power, chaos with charisma, chaos with comedy timing, and slams no one has replicated since. When he knocked out Chuck Liddell at UFC 71 and howled in victory, it felt like the sport itself had leveled up. Jiri Prochazka. If the UFC had a shaman division, Jiri Prochazka would be its undisputed champion. Long before he claimed the light heavyweight title, Jiri was already operating on a different plane. A Czech samurai in a postmodern world, he trained like he was prepping for spiritual combat, meditating in forests, screaming into the sky, reciting Bushido code from the Book of Five Rings, and channeling warrior spirits through headbutts and hair. Yes, the hair. That spiky top knot, not a style choice. Jiri called it his Wi-Fi antenna to the universe, and when he landed a spinning back elbow to knock out Dominic Reyes, he claimed it came not from drilling, but from receiving a signal. Most fighters download tape, Jiri downloads enlightenment. But beneath all the mysticism is a deeply violent man. Prochazka fights like he's trying to collapse time. Relentless forward motion, zero regard for traditional defense, chaos wrapped in discipline. He doesn't just hit you, he challenges your essence. Somehow it works. Brutally. Yet for all the damage he deals, Jiri speaks like a monk. He once told the media his ego wants money, women, and cars. But his soul just wants a cabin in the woods to work on inner mastery. After one fight, he claimed to have a matrix-breaking moment during a weight cut, awakening to a higher understanding of the present moment. UFC's version of an ayahuasca trip, just with less vomiting and more elbows. He doesn't call out fighters. He doesn't trash talk. He bows deeply, thanks the universe, and walks off like a ronin searching for his next lesson. Kron Gracie. The last name says tradition, the personality says conspiracy subreddit. Kron Gracie entered MMA with the aura of jiu-jitsu royalty, son of Rickson, bearer of the sacred gi, and a submission specialist who treated guard pulls like high art. But where most Gracies are mystical in a stoic, martial sense, Kron is mystical in a the earth might be a flat eyeball sense. The jiu-jitsu, flawless, pure lineage, smothering pressure, airtight submissions. But it's everything around the grappling that catapulted Kron into MMA's Weird Hall of Fame. Exhibit A, his now infamous podcast appearance with Eddie Bravo. It started normal, breakdowns of guard passing, flow state, the usual, and then Kron began mapping out the earth as an eye, not a metaphorical one, a literal ocular diagram. According to Kron, the world might not be round or flat, it might be something else, like a dome with colors and consciousness. He wasn't sure, he just knew the mainstream model was wrong. NASA, take notes. He also speculated the Earth might be spinning at 666 miles an hour, a number he found suspicious, because of course he did. And it didn't stop there. He's referenced higher powers speaking through him. He's practiced the infamous Rickson-style breathing exercises in public like a possessed accordion. And when he returned to the UFC after a 4-year absence, he fought Cub Swanson as if time hadn't passed. No head movement, no adaptation, just straight line pressure and vibes. There's something admirable in his refusal to conform. He could have tried modern MMA. He didn't. He could have played politics. He didn't. He showed up as he is, fully Gracie, fully off-grid. Kimo Leopoldo. Before Conor had suits, before Paddy had memes, before walkouts became theatrical events, Kimo Leopoldo walked to the UFC cage carrying a full-size wooden cross. It was 1994, UFC 3, the Wild West of MMA. No gloves, no rounds, no weight classes, just bare-knuckle carnage in a smoky Denver arena. And then came Kimo, shirtless, tattooed, accompanied by cornermen holding signs with Bible verses. And behind them, Kimo himself, dragging a cross like he was heading to a passion play, not a prize fight. It was part sincerity, part spectacle, and 100% unforgettable. The UFC had no idea it was coming. He snuck the cross into the venue by packing it in separate bags labeled training equipment. And the best part? It worked. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer, pray, or call security. Kimo wasn't just a visual stunt. He was the first man to truly push Royce Gracie to the brink in the early UFC days. Despite losing via armbar, he beat Gracie's body so badly that Royce withdrew from the tournament due to exhaustion. Kimo's wild man brawling, Jesus tattoos, and hair trigger rage added instant folklore to the chaos. His weirdness never really went away. He once fought in a GI, tried to corner another fighter with a cross replica, and surrounded himself with even stranger side characters, like Joe Sun, his cornerman at UFC 4, who infamously got punched directly in the groin by Keith Hackney in one of MMA's earliest viral moments. Eventually, Kimo faded out of the UFC spotlight, but that entrance, that image of a man dragging the cross down the aisle into sanctioned combat, stayed burned into the memory of every fan old enough to remember it.